Hey, you're listening to another episode of On Our Best Behavior. And today you have me, Kelli. I'm giving McCoy a break tonight. And I have a very special guest to introduce to you. Today I have my true inspiration, an icon to the Twin Cities, host of the KDWB Dave Ryan in the Morning Show, podcast host of the Minnesota Goodbye, and Take a Shower, Show Up on Time, and Don't Steal Anything, plus author of the same title. He is also a pilot, ukuleleist, member of Mensa, and I am beyond honored and frankly over the fucking moon to introduce Dave Ryan.
Yay, Kelly! I did not expect you to say over the fucking moon, which is funny because I asked Kelly before we started. I said, I don't have any intention of being like adult and dirty, but I mean, what is your audience? So apparently, we can say the F word on this podcast.
Yes, you can.
So okay, was not aware of that.
It is a very
know.
It's a prevalent word in my vocabulary. So,
well, you know what is so interesting because I'm reading a book right now by Henry Winkler. Do you know who Henry Winkler is?
No.
Okay,
but I do
Henry
read a
Winkler.
lot.
Okay, he was the Fonzie on Happy Days back when I was a kid growing up. So I saw his book at a bookstore. And to me, when I was 11 years old or 12 years old or whatever, Happy Days was the shit. That was the show. It was the first show besides the Brady Bunch that I loved and related to. And it was like they dealt with sex a little bit and, crime a little bit and whatever. And so the Fonz was the shit for a kid. So I saw his book and I'm reading it and he uses the word fuck a lot. And I thought, wow. It's just such a common expressive word. And, here's Kelly. Kelly is like as far as I can tell, a normal mom, a normal parent, a normal person. And, we love to use the word fuck because it's so expressive. And I know even people who are religious and very faithful, etc. And once in a while, they'll bust out the F word. And I'm like, yep, because it's perfect sometimes.
Yeah. When I was a kid, you could never say that, like you could say anything in the world to my grandparents, but you could never, if anyone said that word, it was like, oh my gosh, you can't say that in front of grandma. And then as time evolved, when I was older, like everyone said it, like they were just so used to it by then. So it's kind of interesting to watch how language, along with many other things and topics, have evolved to be, you can talk about it, you can say it.
Well, no, it's true. And you remind me of a story that my dad never swore. He would never say the S word, and we didn't swear around him. My mom swore, but my dad never did. And the only time I ever heard him swore, when I was probably about 10, my sister was driving in the driveway, and he said, "Don't stop in the snow or you'll get stuck." And so she stopped, and we got stuck, and he said, "God damn it." And I was like, whoa. And then when a couple of years before he died 20 years ago, almost exactly, we were driving along and he's telling me a story and he said the word motherfucker. And he was talking about how, and I told this kid, you motherfucker. And I'm like, oh, Dad. So even in my dad's vocabulary, very rarely used. So
yeah.
Anyway.
I swear a lot, and I grew up with parents and uncles who swore a lot. And when I would meet people and I didn't really change or filter the way I talked around my kids, they would be like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't talk like that in front of your kids. And I would just say, like, I'd rather have them experience life from me versus going out into the real world and then being like shell shocked about how people talk or things that happen. And I also like to be very transparent about talking about like all things that happen in life, whether it's sex or drugs or anything. And I always say, if you have a question, just ask, because I'm happy to tell you about it. And I'm never going to sugarcoat things, because I remember being younger and going to school and kids talking about stuff. And I was like, I have no idea what that means, but I'm going to pretend I do.
Right.
Our generation, we didn't have Google to just look things up. So we didn't have that access at our fingertips.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's so interesting. My parents were a little bit more protective about things like that. Probably a generational thing, but good for you for talking to McCoy and your other son about
AJ,
things. AJ?
Yeah.
About things. Good for you.
So, all right. So, I already pretty much told my audience who you are, but I want to know in your own words who you are, what you do, what you like, who you love.
Wow, there's a lot there. I will be honest with you. I think a lot of the time we're still trying to figure out who we are. I think that, you'd be surprised. I used to think by the time I was like a senior in high school, I would figure out who I was. So here I was, a freshman in high school going, I don't know who I am. I'm insecure. I'm shy. But by the time I'm a senior, I'm going to own this school. I will get it. People will like me. Girls will want me, guys will want to be me,
Yeah.
and I, of course, it didn't work out that way. And so all these years later, I think we're still kind of trying to figure out who we are. But I think at the same time, you kind of know. So who am I? I am a dad. I think probably first of all, that is probably my favorite thing that I do. But I also am a radio person because that really gave me my identity. I was one of those people in school who I wasn't good at sports. I didn't play sports. I wasn't good in band. I wasn't a good student. But when I found radio and broadcasting, that was the thing that I was good at. The first thing that I was really good at. I was never a great Boy Scout. I was never a great, I don't know. I was a good friend, I think, but radio gave me my identity, and it gave me my credibility, and it gave me a purpose, and it gave me something that I never had back when I was in school, and that was kind of attention and meaningfulness. And so it's really weird for me still to, like, when I walk through, like when I was going through the Boo Bash a couple of weeks ago, and people would stop and say, I just want to tell you, I listen to you every day, and it means so much, and you guys, and blah, blah, blah. And it's such an honor to meet you. It's kind of hard to reconcile that with the person that I kind of still feel like deep inside. And that is kind of like, the person who's struggling to be somebody. But, I'm quite comfortable with all that. I've been doing it for a long time, and I am proud of what I do. I'm proud of what I've been able to do. Usually being on the radio is my favorite part of the day. But at the same time, I don't come home and act like anything special. I come home and, like I said a while ago, I was sitting on the couch reading my book. I'm probably going to get on the elliptical a little bit later on. I've been meaning to play a new game on my Nintendo Switch that I haven't gotten a lot of time for. And tonight we're probably going to, watch Suits. So when I get away from, doing the radio thing, I come home, I'm just a very average, moderately dull kind of a person, and I'm okay with that. I think that there are some people in radio who they are so, and I won't name any, but they're so caught up in who they are to their public or their fans that they really cannot escape that. Even at home, they are about being that person, and I just have never been that way. I would never get away with that. Susan would kill me. It's just never been in my nature. So I am most of the time happy, and I always have something that I want to do. For example, you might have heard about this on the radio, Kelly. I said next summer I want to climb Pikes Peak.
Yeah.
It's 13.2 miles. It's 14,115 feet. I've climbed down it, but I've never climbed up it. But it's like there's always something that I want to do. There's always something. I never sit around and go, I don't want to. There's always something I want to do.
That's so exciting. I love that about you. Listening to you, and even when you talk about, everyone asks like, "Oh, when are you going to retire?" And you're like, "I don't think I can ever quit. Like, I'm not the kind of person who just wants to lay on my couch and watch TV." Like, you're such a go-getter, and that's very inspirational.
Yeah, and I think I don't know where that came from because I was not a go-getter when I was a kid, but I think success kind of builds on itself, and if you're successful in something, you go, "Wow, I actually can do that." So then you want to go do more. Just in the same way, like if you fail at something, whether it's a relationship or a business or whatever, you might go, "I don't want to fall in love again because love sucks." So I think it takes some success to build on success.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever guested on a podcast before?
I have. I've been on a couple of friends' podcasts. We were talking about this earlier. I admire Kelly, you and McCoy for doing 2 years worth of podcasts because I read some stat somewhere that the average number of episodes in a podcast is one. In
Oh,
other words,
really?
people will do one episode and go, nobody listened to it. It wasn't much fun. It didn't go very well, and they'll never do another one. So you have beaten the average by a long way. But I have not been on a lot of podcasts, maybe 3 or 4. And to
Okay.
be honest, I remember one was my friend Eric, who was a cop, and he had me on his podcast. And if I've been on another podcast, I was on one for Jordan High School, and I don't remember what it was about. It was 2 students. They did a great job, but it was just, kind of a standard tell us about yourself kind of a podcast. But I haven't been on that many, but I love doing it. So thanks for having me.
Good. So, I feel like most people know you from radio that don't know you, right? But we feel like we
hmm
do. Was it always radio for you? You said like in high school you didn't really have anything, and then once you like found radio, that was it. So was and I mean back then, how long have you been doing this? Over 25 years, 30 years?
Oh,
We
longer
didn't
than
have
that.
longer than that.
Yeah, yeah.
We didn't have the resources that we have now. Like there wasn't the internet, there wasn't all these, channels to get yourself out there. So I feel like back then it was even harder to get where you are today. You can't just say like I'm going to be the morning host of a really popular radio show. So how did you get here?
Uh, I could take the long route, but I won't bore you. I will only say that you're absolutely right when I tell you, and you repeated back, that I really didn't have any other like skills, or I wasn't a great musician. I was never a great student. I was not going to go to college. I went to a community college, and I purposely tested into the radio department. So you would take this test, and it was on a very primitive computer modem, and it would give you a test, and some of the questions were like, do you like working indoors or outdoors? And I would match every answer up to working on the radio. So, that would be indoors. Okay. Do you want to work alone or with other people? Radio alone, alone. So, and I wish I could remember all the questions. I can't, but I tailored my answers to radio DJ, and radio DJ was my number one career choice according to this computer program. So I went to school for radio and TV production, or radio and TV broadcasting when I was a senior in high school. So it was a community college, but I would do one class at high school, go to the community college, and then take radio and TV broadcasting, then come back home and then take the school bus home. So the first week or so, I was busy screwing around because some of my friends got into the same class, not because they wanted to be in broadcasting, but because they didn't know what else to choose. So here I am in the back of the class, being a little shit, chatting with my friends, and the instructor kept us after class. And I wish, Kelly, I remembered exactly what he said, but he basically put into my mind something along the lines of, this is the real world. This means something. This will change your life if you take it seriously. This ain't high school anymore. You got to take it seriously and quit dicking around. And I wish I could remember what he said, because in 3 minutes, he changed my total mindset. And I then took it seriously, and I was the number one student in that class. I did everything. I'm not bragging, but I did everything better than anybody else in that class, mostly because I worked hard, and everybody else was kind of like, oh, that assignment's due today. Well, maybe I'll get to it. Maybe. And I had mine done like 3 days earlier, and I got straight A's. And so they recommended me for a radio job. I got a radio job, then another radio job, then another radio job. And then I didn't realize I wanted to do mornings until I was about 20 years old. And our morning guy was so funny and so amazing. And I want to be him. So I got a job at 21 years old, working at a big station in Las Vegas. And it gets funny, Kelly, because Las Vegas is a pretty decent sized town. And I was 21 with no morning experience, yet they hired me, and I did a really good job out there. And I look back at that kid who was 21, and I have no idea how I did it, because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that I would fail, that I could even fail. It wasn't even a possibility. I knew I would win. And I think that mindset really helped me, because I didn't know, I was so ignorant to know that I was in way over my head, but I did it anyway. And I look back at that 21-year-old kid and I go, I don't know how he did it. I could not do that now. It amazes me. And then I got promoted to another station, then another station, and then I got fired from 2 stations, and then I got hired here. So
you never needed a plan B. You did it.
no, well, I really thought that by the time I was going to be about 38 or so, the whole radio thing would kind of, peter out and die off. And I thought, God, I wonder if you're too old to join the military at 38 years old. Because I really thought at 38 years old, that was going to be my backup plan. And 38 came and went, and so did 48 and some other ages. And still here I am. So.
Was your dad in the military?
He was, yeah. He was much older than me. He was 46, almost 47 when he had me. He was in World War II.
Yeah.
And I will give credit to my dad for my mom gets credit for giving me a sense of humor. My dad gets credit for giving me a work ethic because that was what Dad did. He made us work. And so I think that was one of the things that helped me was a lot of works to me seemed like a little bit to me. So, I mean, a lot of work to anybody else, let's put it that way. A lot of work to anybody else would seem like a little bit of work to me. So I didn't mind doing extra work because it didn't seem like that much compared to growing up on the chicken farm.
Yeah, he put a lot of expectations on you guys. It sounded on you kids. Like you did a lot of work.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. I mean, if he caught us laying around watching TV during the daytime, he would find something for us to do, even if it was made up. Take that pile of wood and move it to another pile over there. Or go paint go paint that barn that it was already painted like last month. Or, go clean out the chicken house. So he did not like to see us sitting around. And so we purposely would not do a lot of sitting around. We would, stay busy doing something, I don't know what, reading or being gone or something. I don't know.
It'd be like, oh shit, here comes Dad, look busy. So he doesn't put us to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exactly it, Kelly. Yeah, absolutely. Here comes Dad. Oh shit.
So even having a parent in the military, you were still interested in going? It didn't scare you? Like knowing everything your dad had been through, especially World War II?
Interested in what?
Going into the military.
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't want to fight. I was like, I would have joined the Air Force where, we used to joke about if you're in the Air Force, your job is to play golf. And, like if you're in the Army or the Marines, you're in a trench and you're dodging, bullets. But in the Air Force, it's like, well, you load a plane and then you go to the golf course.
Okay,
so,
got it.
Yeah.
I don't know that much
joke.
about it.
It's not
always
really
sounds
that
scary
way,
to me.
but that was our joke. Yeah.
All right, so you do a live show and a podcast every day of the week, every weekday. That is a lot of content creation. Do you ever get like writer's block or burnout? Like, how do you come up with so much content every single day for years?
It's a curse. It is. I don't know. I mean, there are two answers. Sometimes we don't come up with great ideas. And other times I cannot keep track of all my ideas. And I don't know where that came from, but I think it's a combination of growing up, watching a lot of TV, watching the sitcoms, watching the movies, watching the game shows, watching the talk shows, and kind of like that built a foundation in my head of like, what can we do to be entertaining and be funny? And, growing up around my mom, who is funny. And I was like, I thought I was the funny one growing up and reading a lot. And so it's kind of like, I kind of compare it to a creative pantry. And this is one of my favorite analogies. If you want to be creative, let's say if you want, you're in the kitchen and you only have flour and sugar and eggs and water and baking soda, there's not a lot you can make. But if you go out and you buy a bunch of spices and you buy some, yeast, and you buy some breadcrumbs and you buy some whatever, and now you got all this stuff in your pantry, now you can make a whole lot more. And I think creativity is the same way, where if you go out and have a lot of experiences and watch a lot of shows and do a lot of things and ride a motorcycle and fly airplanes and play the ukulele and do magic tricks, it all comes together to give you ingredients for creativity. And so that's one of the reasons why I like to do so many different things, like I said, play my Nintendo Switch, to go to the gym, to I ran a 5K the other day, and they all kind of go together to give you ingredients for creativity. And I think that's been something that I kind of stumbled upon. And I think that might be why a lot of people who don't do a lot say, well, I'm not creative. Well, you're not giving yourself enough ingredients to be creative.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. I
I
can see
don't
that.
really there are days when we sit there and go, what are we going to do tomorrow? We're like, okay, we got the 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and 9:15 break open. What are we going to do? Like, I don't
Hmm.
know. What are we going to do? I don't know. But other days it's like, oh, well, what about the idea where we had this? And what about the idea where we had that? And let's do that. And the funny thing is, Kelly, you also got to give yourself permission to suck. And a lot of
Yeah.
people, and like we've done some bits that were just disasters. And so I don't want to, call any out right now. But, I mean,
And I've heard
you,
you say that on the radio, like, oh, yeah, we did that. It didn't go the way we wanted to, but, there's only one way to find out, right? Trial and
yeah.
error.
Yeah, it's true. And I would say, maybe it's like 60-40 success to 40% failure. And sometimes we go, well, let's never do that one again. Or sometimes you actually feel it bombing as you do it. And you're
Mm,
like, nah, this is
that's the
not
worst
working.
feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, but, like I said, you got to keep trying new things. But then I joke about like, you got to keep trying things and not do the same thing over and over again, like War of the Roses for 20 years. God,
Right. Oh,
because
everyone
we joke
hates
about it.
it.
Yeah, I know, right?
Mm. So bad days. You have bad days. Something terrible happens in your life and it consumes you and it's all you can think about. How do you shut that off and stay on for your show?
I find that actually kind of easy. If I have a bad day, the radio show totally distracts me from it. So, for example, let's say I don't know, I don't want to put something out into the universe, but let's say Carson broke his leg. And now I'm worried because Carson broke his leg. And but when I come into work, it is the best distraction. It's the best therapy. I've gone through some really bad stuff. About 10 years ago, there was like a really, really bad time in my life, and the radio was the best part. It really, it's part being, it's like if you have a surgeon, you have a good surgeon, she's going to forget that she's really stressed and somebody stole her identity while she's taking out your gallbladder.
You
You
hope,
would
yeah.
not want the surgeon who's like, oh shit, God, give me the scalpel. Hurry up. God, oh, whoops. Oh shit. You
They're
want the
probably
surgeon
glad, like,
who's
hey, I'm pissed and I get to cut somebody open today. Yeah.
right, right. But you want the surgeon who is going to be able to put that aside because even surgeons are going to have bad days and stress, and their kid broke their leg and somebody stole their car. So it's just a matter of putting it to the side. You do the same thing at your work. When you have a bad
Right.
day, you can't go in and like, throw shit around and slam doors and, you just do your thing.
I
Or
guess
maybe you do.
that's a
Kelly's
good
laughing. I don't
point.
know.
Maybe
Maybe
that's a
maybe you
good
do.
point. I wear my heart on my sleeve a little bit. Most people who know me be like, "Oh yeah, Kelly, you should take notes." Um, do you ever get burnt out? How do you deal with that? I mean,
Oh,
over the years,
absolutely.
yeah. And
Yeah, as a matter of
it's the
fact,
same kind of thing. You're just one foot in front of the other, and
yep. Yeah, it
yeah,
really is. There have been a couple of times we talked about this on the radio, on the podcast, the Minnesota Goodbye, a week or so ago. And I talked about how back in the mid to late 90s, I was so burnt out doing what I was doing. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to. And so I read books about changing careers. I went to a career counselor and they gave me a test to find out what my good aptitudes would be. And I think I misspoke on the podcast. I said chemical engineer. And it wasn't chemical engineer because you have to be brilliant to be an engineer,
well, you are a
especially.
member of Mensa.
Yeah, but I'm not a math or chemical or, whatever. I'm not that guy.
Oh,
I
okay,
think it was like a chemical something. I don't know. Maybe I drove a chemical truck. I don't know. But I got back into it and I still have, like anybody, there are days when I walk out of there going, I don't want to do this anymore. Anybody who says they don't have those days is lying. I think even the
right.
most talented, successful surgeon, architect, dentist, investor is going to say, oh, man, I don't want to do this anymore. But I don't know what else I would do. So it takes a while and I get back into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we go through different phases, right? And our mind can play tricks on us, and every once in a while. And don't you think too? Like this helps me a lot. Like sometimes I'll go on vacation for a week. We just went to Kentucky, and we do this annual, like it's called a relaxation vacation, and we just go somewhere in the middle of nowhere where it's beautiful, and do like a hard brain reset and focus on the things that we love, like our family and nature and whatever. But then at the end of that trip, I miss my real life. Like, I'm ready to go back to work.
Okay.
I'm ready to just I love my life. Like, I'm good with what I got going on. But sometimes when you are doing that every single day, you lose sight of what is truly important to you because it just becomes so routine and normal and boring. But then if you kind of take that away for a little bit and go back to it, it brings back what's important. So I think that helps
That's
everybody, right?
that's great advice. Yeah, I've never really done that. I mean, vacations are important. I've never really thought about it that way, but that's really good advice to
Yeah.
just go away and learn to appreciate, what it is that you do and what you have.
Yeah. When did you realize you made it big?
um, I saw that question in the email you sent me, and I don't know that there's one moment where I said I've made it big.
And I know like
Um,
you're so like good at being like a real person and down to earth and like we had talked about earlier, like your ego doesn't get in the way and you're not cocky. But there's got to be a time when you like see your face on a billboard or
God, yeah.
people are recognizing you or what was it when you're like, "Oh my gosh, like this
I,
this
I
happened."
don't know, Kelly, that I actually have a moment like that. I don't think I ever had a moment where I said, I've made it big. I've had moments that surprised me, maybe, where like I could say something like I would go to like one of our KDWB appearances, and the doorman would stop me and go, I need to see an ID. And I'd be like, oh, I'm Dave from KDWB. He's like, oh, yeah, come on in. So that's kind of cool. I don't know, Kelly, honestly, and I did think about it. Was there a moment where I said, I've made it? And I think that's maybe part of the thing is I don't know that I've ever had a moment where I said I've made it. Because I think when you say you've made it, then you kind of stop pushing and trying and
Right.
you slow down a little bit. And I've never consciously made that decision to not recognize that moment. There have been a lot of moments where I said, wow. I'll tell you one that maybe makes me think of that a little bit. We were at Treasure Island doing a Gary Spivey show, the psychic. Okay.
Yeah.
So Gary is this world renowned psychic, and he goes to this casino and he sells it out. There's like 3,000 people in this showroom, and we are part of the show. So it was me, Steve, probably Lena, could have been Fallon, I'm not sure. Probably Crisco, intern John, and we're all like getting on stage and doing some fun stuff. And we're back in the green room, and it occurred to me at that moment that I was in charge of all these people and how they trusted me to do a great job and make sure everybody knew what they were doing and make sure everybody knew where to stand and how to act and what to do and where to be. And at that moment, it occurred to me, wow, I never expected to be in charge of something like this. Yet here I am, and everybody likes me and everybody trusts me. And that felt really good. It wasn't a moment of like, I've made it. Maybe a little bit, but more a moment of like, wow, this feels really good. But I don't know that there's ever been a moment. I'll give you one other funny kind of example.
Yeah.
And this happened in 2013. My contract ran out. And usually in radio, if you're doing well, they start to work on your contract a year or 6 months before it runs out. So let's say you and I have a contract. Let's say you're on my radio show and your contract is going to run out on March 1st of 2024. I'm like, oh, shoot, Kelly's contract's going to run out pretty soon. I got to talk to Kelly soon and get, talk about a raise or new contract. But if I don't want you around, I just let your contract run out. And then on March 1st, I go, bye, see you, Kelly. Thanks for being here. And so my contract ran out on, I think, March 31st of 2013, and they never approached me to ask me, let's re-sign your contract. And I mean, our ratings were good. We were doing great, and they just didn't get around to it. And so it really, really hurt. And I was pissed and worried and like, I know they want me there, but they care so little about me that they haven't offered to renew my contract. So I was free to look for another job. So a station coincidentally in Miami called and offered me a job. They flew Susan and I down there. They put us up in the Hotel Fontainebleau, which is like a really hoity-toity hotel on Miami Beach. They took us to a beautiful, expensive steakhouse with their whole crew. And they wined and dined us. They gave us a big fruit basket and a bottle of champagne in the hotel room. They drove Susan around to look at homes, and they offered me the morning show
Wow.
for about 50% more than what I was making at KDWB.
Wow.
I came back and I said, I'm leaving. I'm going to Miami. And they said, why? And I said, because you dickheads haven't renewed my contract. A day or two later, one of the iHeartRadio bigwigs flew into town, took me to lunch at Crave, sat me down and said, what do you want to make? And I
Had they
threw
just
out
forgotten about you? Did they just
they
like
had
not
either
realize?
something like that, yeah.
Okay.
Which really hurt because it'd be kind of
Yeah.
like forgetting your birthday. It's like, Kelli,
Right.
oh yeah, it's your
It's my
birthday.
favorite
Oh God,
holiday.
right, yeah, it's Kelli Day. So he took me out to lunch at Crave, and I remember he said, what do you want to make? And I threw out a number thinking they're never going to go for this because, you know, when you negotiate, you don't accept their offer. You always come in with a different number.
Yeah.
I threw out a ridiculous number and he said, done.
Yay.
And
That's
that might have
awesome.
been a moment where I said, I've made it.
Yes.
At that moment, though, I remember thinking, oh, I should have gone higher.
Right. Always.
I should have gone higher. But it was it was great. And somebody fucked up, and I don't know who, and nobody's ever said who.
Well,
and
maybe it was a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it might have been a matter of, I thought you were taking care of it. I thought you were taking care of it. Oh, I thought you were taking care of it type of thing. So
however, this time of year, you probably wish you were in Miami because it's so cold.
Oh, I know. Do you like the cold, Kelli? Do you
No,
tolerate
I
the cold?
hate it. I don't. I mean, I tolerate it, but I hate it.
Do you do anything outdoors to tolerate it better? Skiing or snowboarding or ice fishing or skating?
No, because I hate it.
Okay.
I absolutely hate it.
I don't blame you.
I tried to be active in the winter and I fell quite a few times and I was like, I'm done. I don't want to get hurt. So it's just not for me. I'm not very athletic.
Valid.
So
Valid. Totally valid.
I just try to get through it, you know? Let's be real.
You're like me. I do cross country skiing. I used to do snowboarding. I don't really like snowboarding as much anymore because I don't like to fall.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm not as young as I used to be and it hurts more to fall. And if I go with Carson, he wants to go on the blue and black runs, and I don't really like the blue and black runs, and I hate the fall. So I do cross country skiing. I tried ice fishing. That was not for me. I am not an ice fisher person. I'm not an angler. So I'm kind of like you. You know, I tolerate it. I try my best to just get through it, look at the calendar and go, okay.
It's going to be 20 today. Woo, heat wave.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Oh shoot, I forgot where my brain was going with that, but anyway. All right, so next question I'm going to ask you is, you know, one of my favorite memories of being in junior high was listening to you on the school bus, and it was like, oh, you had a really cool school bus driver if they let you listen to KDWB, because as you know, even now, like you'll be like, okay, you know, at this hour, if you have kids in the car, shut it off because we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z. And so when I was younger, I always wondered what it was like for your kids, especially Allison, because she's my gender and my age. Like, oh my gosh, like, what is it like to have Dave Ryan be your dad? Are you mortified? Are you proud? Do people use you? I don't know, you know, and like parody songs about Allison and Carson, and how did they deal with that? Or was there ever times when they would be like, Dad, no?
Probably. I think that you would almost have to ask them. But I think that I've helped them handle it well. I know that they don't like it when somebody comes up to us in public and wants to say hi or wants a picture. They don't like it, but they've gotten used to it and they're polite about it. Like, you know, like last night at the Vikings game, somebody said, Dave Ryan. Oh my God.
You were at the game last night? I was there too.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
And they wanted a picture, and I'm never, ever going to be rude and say, I'm with my family, because if they care enough to recognize me, then they're a big enough fan of the show. I'm going to recognize them and their time and, you know, chat a little bit. And Carson, Susan's fine. She's an adult. Carson is 22, and 11-year-old Carson might have thought it was cool. 15-year-old Carson would have been annoyed, but 22-year-old Carson is polite and smiles.
Yeah. And he's kind of in like the entertainment industry now too. So
he is, yeah.
He gets it, right?
Yeah,
now,
I think he kind of gets it. And they've grown up to it. They've gotten kind of used to it. I Oh, there was something I was going to say, and now I can't remember what it
Well, I'm
was.
glad it's not just me.
No, I do it all the time. But if I keep talking, maybe it'll come to me. So they've gotten used to it. They really don't mind it. And there was something else I was going to say. Oh, I know what it was. Here's what it was. So when Carson went to Chanhassen High School, word got out, oh, that's Carson. That's Dave Ryan's kid. So when he was a freshman at Chanhassen High School, there's an entire page of his yearbook dedicated to Carson and how he is my kid. And I didn't like that. I mean, I was flattered, but I didn't like it because it wasn't about Carson. It was about
Right.
Dad. And I really don't like Carson to ever have to look at me and compare himself to me or be Dave Ryan's kid. And I know the kids at the yearbook. I mean, God love them. They were kids. And you know what? It was kind of cool, I guess. But I didn't like that for Carson because I think he was kind of embarrassed. He just wanted to be his own kid.
Yeah.
He wanted to be Colin's
Own
buddy.
identity.
He
Yeah.
wanted to be the drummer in the jazz band, and he wanted to be like, a kid who was good at chemistry. He didn't want to be Dave Ryan's kid, but at the same time, he kind of got it. So, Allison, if she struggled with it, I don't know that she did, but she may have. I don't know. But Chase and Beth, they grew up somewhere else, so they didn't care.
Isn't Chase on the news?
He is on the news. He is on KPHX Channel 12 in Phoenix. Chase Golightly, and people think that's a made-up last name. It's like, no, that's his real last name.
I thought that.
Golightly, yeah.
And then I saw they're having a baby, and I saw like baby Golightly coming. I'm like, oh, it's for real. His last name. That's cool.
It really is. Yeah, it's a crazy, like, great last name. And then somebody on Instagram, I posted something a couple of weeks ago, and somebody said, "Great stage name." Sounds kind of fake, and I'm like, it's real. It's his real name.
It's real.
Yeah.
You're the baby of your family. How many siblings do you have?
I got 4 older sisters and an older brother.
Okay. 6. I was thinking there was only 5 of you.
Yep.
So you're the youngest?
Yep.
Okay. Do you think you're the most successful of your family?
Financially, yes. But it kind of depends on how you define success. My brother is probably a better person than me. My sister Vivian is probably a better person than me. Sharon probably has more friends than me. Dawn is more outgoing than me. So it depends on what you call success. I mean, career-wise, probably. But, my brother is much more loved than me. He's just a warm-hearted, jolly old fat fuck, and everybody loves him. So,
do you guys get together ever now that your parents are gone?
It's funny because when your parents die, that gathering point kind of goes away. I'm fortunate that I have 3 sisters that still live in Colorado Springs, so I saw them. In the last couple of months, we went to dinner and we got together, and there was a graduation not too long ago, so we got together for that. But, I haven't seen my brother in, 5 years. He travels and he came here for work. And another sister, I haven't seen her in 10 years. So, it's like, you're scattered around the country, so you don't get together like you used to.
Yeah. I lost my parents a couple years ago, and I feel like they were definitely the glue that held us together. So it's much different now without them. So, but
it really is because they become the gathering point and the focal point, and they're the ones who call and say, "Hey, come over for Thanksgiving," or that they add, and it is a challenge to, especially if you're not close to begin with, it is a challenge to stay connected after mom and dad are gone.
Okay. You have been the Dave Ryan in the Morning Show for over 25 years. You have, I think it is so cool that you have adapted so well to changes in the world, staying relevant to such a range of generations. And, you've gone through different co-hosts and you've just made it seem so seamless. Has it been as seamless as you make it look or sound?
Sometimes, we try to be really careful. I know what kind of people that I work best with, and I work best with people who are team players and have a big personality. And that's kind of been the common denominator of my show, the big personality and a team player. and easy to get along with, kind of goes hand in hand with team player. And I tell people that I work with when they're new, I say, do not hold back. Do not hold back. I would much rather have you ask you to back it off a little bit than to be like, hey, come on, bring me some stuff to the table. So people feel really, really encouraged and welcome to be themselves and to bring that to the show. So if they got an idea or something they want to say, they don't go, can I just, is it okay if I want to chime in? No, they're like, bitch, I want to tell you what I think.
Yeah.
And that's what I like, because that is a big personality. And so, no, I kind of like find those people in advance. And what's funny, Kelly, is that there are so many people who think they can do what Fallon does and what Jenny does and what Lena and Corey and Angie and Lee Valsvik and Pat Eberts and Steve-O and intern John and Crisco. Everybody thinks they can do that. And then it's a skill. And some people are more natural at it than others. But it's just like when you watch somebody play golf. Well, they make it look easy because they're so good on TV. But if you ever play golf, you know it's not an easy sport. You know, you're going to whiff and suck and hit it into the woods. But they make it look easy. So, you know, somebody who doesn't know any better could watch golf and go, oh, I could do that. So I think there is definitely a skill set. It comes more naturally to some people. And we try to hire people who are naturally good or have a lot of potential to be really good. And that makes my job a whole lot easier. So I give a lot of credit to the people on my show, because if it was just me, it would be really difficult. It would be really boring. And I think one of the things when you talk about relating to different audiences, that's like, how do I say this? There's different people that relate to different people. So, for example, on the cast of Friends, if everybody was as goofy as Phoebe, it wouldn't have been as good a show. Mm-hmm. If everybody was neurotic as Monica, it wouldn't have been as good of a show. If everybody was as nerdy as Ross or as stupid as Joey, it wouldn't have been as good a show. So they said, okay, when they created the show, they said, we need a goofy one, we need a neurotic one, we need a smart one, we need a normal one. And that's kind of how it is on our show. We've got Drake, who's a goof and a space cadet, and we got Jenny, who's like, I don't know, kind of a mother hen and a former party girl. And then we've got me, who's like kind of the smart ass and, act like I don't care. And like, oh, what are they going to do? Fire me kind of an attitude.
Yeah.
So it takes all different kinds, but I think we're really good at blending those kinds together.
Yeah. Just kind of having like you said, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Helps out a lot. Do you worry about upsetting people? Like sometimes, so this is a funny story I have for you. I came home a while. It was the beginning of summer because it was your opinion on the early state fair. And I am a huge state fair lover. And I was listening to the Minnesota Goodbye, and you're like, I love the state fair because it happens at the end of August every year. I don't want the state fair every fucking month of the summer because that makes it not special anymore.
Right.
And I was like, I came home and I'm like, I'm mad at Dave today. And Justin's like, what happened? I'm like, this is what he said about the state fair. And then whatever day of the week that was, I come home the next day and I'm like, oh, today Dave was talking about blah, blah, blah. He's like, I thought you're mad at him. I'm like, I'm not mad at him. I'm like, we all can have our own opinions.
That's
I just don't agree with that one.
Well, that's a mild one. If that's the most upset I've ever got you, Kelly, then I've done pretty good. No. But there are people who, will say something and I'm trying to think of something. Okay, for example, if I went on the air and said, cheerleading is not a sport, that would really piss some people off. Now, I'm not going to do that because whether I believe it or not, I'm not here to piss people off. I want people to like us. If I work at Target, I want you to want to come into Target. I don't want you to go, fuck Target, I'm going to Walmart, I'm going to Kohl's. So my job is to not piss you off. It might be to titillate you a little bit.
Yeah.
Trying to think of something that and usually what happens when we titillate, Kelly, is there are people who go, yeah, I totally agree. For example, if I say something like, what, and I really believe you should be able to recline your seat on an airplane. You paid for the seat. The button is on your seat. It only reclines about that much. It doesn't hit you in the knees. If you ever look at an airline seat, it doesn't move around your knees. People are just little bitches, and they're like, "Man, I don't want you're reclining, you're offending me." You know what? No,
Oh
bitch.
my
I
God.
paid for this seat. The
Yeah.
button's on my seat. If you're in front of me, you can recline too. I might not love it, but it only reclines 2 inches. And
Right.
people
And
would
it's
say,
only a
well, why
couple
do you need
hours.
right? Why do you need to recline it then if it only reclines 2 inches? Because 2 inches is better than none. So
Yeah. That's
I
what she
don't
said.
mind titillating people that way, because who is going to not like somebody because of whether they recline their seat or not? So do I worry about making people angry? No, because we try not to make people angry. We'll push some buttons once in a while, but I would never
It's
want to
good.
make
It's good
people
to make people
angry.
think, right? It's okay to make them
Yeah.
think, but not upset them.
And
Meh,
here's the funny
you're
thing
gonna.
is when you make people think like that, they're always the people who go, "Yeah, I'm glad somebody finally said that."
Right.
So,
Yeah.
except
It's
you and the
fun to
state
be.
fair.
Yeah. I'm over it. I'm not really mad at you. I'm like, well, not everyone loves the fair as much as I do. It's okay.
I love the
But
fair. I just, it's like it's 2 weeks. It doesn't need to be more than 2 weeks. Just like Christmas only needs to happen once a
right.
year,
Well,
or
now
else it would
people
get
are
old.
putting up their Christmas tree on Halloween,
I know, it's crazy. It's so true,
but to each their own, right?
right?
Do you have a most memorable radio moment?
I saw that um, on your list of questions, and I tried to think, and I've probably been asked that question before. And off the top of my head, I can't think of any one particular radio moment, but I can give you a couple that were pretty cool. We went to the American Music Awards because we were on the radio in 1996. And we got to hang out backstage, and we got to meet some of the artists. And but I remember sitting in the audience, and we were on the left end side, where the stars would go backstage to make a speech or backstage to perform, and then they would come back out on that same side. And so Garth Brooks um, walked by, and I said, "Garth, hi, Garth," because I was a groupie, and like everybody else was like, "Garth, hi." And so he walks past me, and I'm like, "Oh, he walked past me." Then I feel this tap on my shoulder, and I turn around, and there's Garth Brooks' face, like 3 inches from mine. He's wearing a cowboy hat, and he's like, "Hey, man, how are you?" And I'm like, "Holy fuck, I'm good." I mean, I didn't say that,
Yeah,
but
but you're
I mean,
thinking it.
that's
Yeah,
not a defining moment, but it's just one of the things that it
it's
would never have
memorable.
happened if I had not been on the radio, if I never had this opportunity. Um, I got to fly with the Blue Angels and the Air Force Thunderbirds, which was really, really cool. I got to be there when a stranger had a baby, because we adopted her, because the baby daddy was like out of the picture. So we went to the classes with her, and there's all kinds of things that
Oh,
you might say, well, is that the most? I can't really think of one experience that made me say, wow, that was the pinnacle. But here's the thing: as soon as we hang up, I'm going to go, I
I
should
have
have
a
thought of that
bunch of
one.
them, right?
I'll text you.
Okay. Um, so I have some listener questions for you,
Okay.
and somebody wants to know whatever happened to Tony Fly.
There are some people that I choose not to talk about, to be honest with you. And that's really all I'll say. It's kind of like you choose people that you will associate with. You choose your friends, you choose who you want to hang out with. And there are people that I choose not to talk about.
Christmas wish. Do you ever get any follow up of what happens to those people?
Oh, a lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
A
you do.
lot. Yeah. A lot of the time people will remember, um, like, oh, you made a wish for my mom back in 2012 and she just passed away.
Okay.
Or, yeah, you made a wish for my dad and he lived 2 weeks later before he died. And you made a wish for us back in 2014, and it really turned our world around. We were at an all-time low, and that really gave us hope and made us people know that people thought. So yeah, we do. We don't hear back from everybody.
Hmm.
And I don't expect to hear back from everybody. That's not part of the conditions. Part of the conditions is not for you to call me back or email me back and tell me how wonderful we are. That's not part of the conditions. That's not part of the agreement. But some people do. Most
Yeah.
people don't. But I figured that's okay. You know what? They got other stuff going on.
I think we just always wonder, like, where are they now? Some people that you hear their stories or their situations, or, even these War of the Roses people who are, somebody wanted me to ask you, are there really that many crazy people that you can do that many War of the Roses?
Well, apparently so.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, apparently so. Yes.
I'm like, I can answer that for you. It's yes.
Yes, I think there are. Apparently so.
Do you guys do any fake bits? Anything made up?
We have before, but I can't think of anything in particular. Oh, I'll give you an example. Here's one that I've never told anybody about. There was, this was 10 or 12 years ago. I don't know how I got the idea, but again, the creative pantry was at work, and I'm pulling ingredients from here and from here and from here and stirring up this creative soup. And I said, let's have a woman call in complaining because I said I'm starving. And she called in, and it was all set up. We had a friend of ours pretend to be this woman who was upset because I said I'm starving. And she said, Dave, you cannot say I'm starving. You are not starving. You are hungry. There are actual people who are starving, and it is wrong for you to claim you're starving. You wouldn't say, I'm handicapped. You wouldn't say, I lost an arm. I'm blind. Don't say you're starving. And we did that just to get people set off and go, shut up, lady. It's a figure of speech. It's harmless. So that was fake.
But it was fun.
But harmlessly fake. And then there was one that we did this about 20 years ago. And I told a story on the radio about how I was coming out of Ridgedale and I saw a woman getting into her car and her purse was on top of her car. And I said, hey, excuse me. And she flipped me off, got into her car and drove off. And her purse fell off the roof of the car. And I didn't know what to do because, here was this woman who was rude. I was trying to help her. And, she flipped me off and she was rude, and I've got her purse and I've got her driver's license inside, but I haven't opened the purse yet, but I imagine her driver's license inside. And so I told this story for a couple of days. What should I do with the purse? And people were like, throw it away, man. She was a bitch. Throw it away. Or Dave, you got to give it back. So I said, I'm going to look inside the purse right now. I'm opening up the purse. Oh my gosh. What? Oh, look what's in the purse. It's a bunch of baloney, just like this story. And people were like, Dave, that was, you got me, or whatever. And other people were like, that was BS because you totally had me going. So that was made up too. So is there fake stuff on the show? Yeah, I mean, sometimes there is. Yeah.
It's called entertainment, right?
Friends is not real.
Right.
Seinfeld is not real. Golden Girls is not real. Suits is not real. So
you love Suits.
I do love Suits. Yeah, we'll probably watch some of it tonight.
What's your favorite genre of music? You work in Top 40, but do you actually listen to Top 40 on your days off?
I listen like everybody else. I listen to the stuff that I grew up with.
Yeah.
That's what is implanted in our brains. So I listen to the stuff that I grew up with. I do like some of the modern contemporary stuff. But yeah, I like some of the stuff we play on KDWB. But I would say, just like whatever you grew up in the 90s. So you probably love, 90s music. 80s music. What year were you born? You're 41?
Yeah, 82.
Okay. So you like 80s music. So yeah, whatever you grew up with.
I mean,
is
I like
kind
all
of
of it too. So 80s, 90s, today, everything.
Yeah, right.
All right. So I know you listen to every single episode of On Our Best Behavior, and we always end our episodes with a would you rather and a funny joke. So that's what we're going to do. And then I'm going to let you go watch Suits. Okay. So would you rather lick a homeless man's toe or chew a piece of gum you found sticking to the underside of a table?
God. Now, the obvious answer is like neither one.
Right?
But you can't say neither one.
And you don't have to do it. So that's the positive
No, and
part.
I don't. Okay, so let me ask a qualifying question. Do I just have to do one lick?
Yeah.
on the pad of the toe. I don't have to put the toe in my mouth and suck.
You don't have to suck it, no.
How long do I have to chew the gum?
One chomp.
I'm doing the toe. I'm doing the toe.
I think I would do the toe too.
Yeah.
I feel like there's really less bacteria on one toe than a piece of gum that God knows how many people have touched and what it's sticking to.
It's a horrible question, Kelly. It's a horrible question. Horrible question. But I would say the toe.
And then I have a really funny joke for you.
I'll be the judge of that.
Okay. I mean, I am like you. I think I'm really funny. However, most people agree that you are funny. Most people don't agree say that about me. They think I'm funnier than I am. Okay, here it is.
Ready.
Where does Phil Collins record his songs? Do you give up?
I don't know, Kelly.
In the studio.
Ha
Yes!
And you're funny. Look at you being funny.
That was funny.
You're adorable.
Okay, Dave. I was super nervous and a little starstruck when we first connected, but you made this so easy.
No, we could like sit and have coffee and talk for hours.
Yes. So this has been such a great opportunity to have you on the podcast. I'm so appreciative and thankful for your time. You're so down to earth and transparent and just raw, and I love that about you. And this is a dream come true for me. So thank you so much.
That's
and
very sweet.
Dart lick.
Dart lick. Thank you. Inside joke.
Inside joke. And if you ever need a fill in on your show, I'm here. I'm here for it.
I appreciate that, Kelly. I appreciate that so much. And thanks for having me. It has been a lot of fun. It's really fun to meet somebody who has listened to the show and knows a lot of the history of the show and gets things like Dart lick. I really appreciate that. So thank you, Kelly. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. Have a lovely night, Dave.
You too.